Welcome to ArtShow. I'm Craig Stover, and today I have with me Robert Stuart. Hello, Robert. How are you today?
I'm fine, Craig. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure to have you on the show. So I thought I would start by sharing a few images of works of yours to get people engaged. So I went online and I selected a couple of pieces from your website in no particular order, but first wanted to start out with this particular image just because it really helps show the scale of some of your works. Some of the works that I came across were much smaller, but it was great to see these larger pieces. Is this your current studio?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And what are these?
These,
Are
and
these current?
these are early stages of two paintings here on the walls.
Okay. Do you normally work on multiple pieces at the same time?
Uh, I would say that there are sort of unfinished works around that need more help, and that's to let them go. Or I don't really like to have multiple things going, but just some things you just can't finish, and you have to just set it aside, and that's the way it is. So yeah.
How often, when you do set stuff aside, how long can it sit?
Oh boy, it could be several years really, but
Okay.
I think more often it's less time than that, but it can be anywhere from a few weeks to several years and go back to something.
I was
Yeah.
just reading a book on Moreau, and he was talking about the fact that he had paintings that he would work on sometimes for decades, and he was just happy to do it. It was never a bother for him. But I also know other artists that if it's not done within a month, it's a failure for them. So they sort of moves on.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I also wanted to show this piece. You have this on essentially the homepage of your website, and so my guess is that it might have some sort of strategic importance. Can you tell me a little bit about this piece?
Yes. Yeah. If I was, I was at the Philip Guston show recently, the National Gallery, and he put a little circle around his initials or name on the corner if it was a particularly successful painting he thought. And I think this one, I should probably circle that my signature on the back.
Okay.
It sort of exemplifies what I want. I think I think that the quality of sort of light coming through something, and I did title it "Light Gets In," and that's sort of the title of my upcoming exhibit. And I just thought this, but this is on top of a much older painting. This canvas is several years old, and it's just been through all kinds of stages. So it's an example of just going back to something and working on it much more, and it's quite different from what it was originally. But
I can see the thickness on the side. It looks like it almost has a deck. I thought it was on paper because it looks like it has a deckled edge there on the side, but I guess that's just the thickness of the paints.
yes, it is. Yeah, and
But
it's sort of ultramarine blue, layers of ultramarine blue to get that darkness. It's not black, but it's sort of ultramarine blue in the dark bands there.
I was curious to ask about, well, this is a much different piece. This is a work on paper, I believe, and much smaller.
Yes, yes.
I love the almost like the humming quality of that orange. It's got like a little bit of a vibrancy to it. And I guess that really works because of the background. Um, but this piece is a couple years older,
Yes, yes,
correct?
yes. At least more than that, probably. But I'm glad you picked it because I think that humming is the quality I really want to get in here, and that background sort of being almost like a stone or some sort of natural slab on the background, but having this light sort of slightly humming is what I'm striving for there.
When you make these smaller pieces, are they in and of themselves, or are they maybe ideas for larger works?
I I think I don't know. Often they're just on their own themselves, but I do have sometimes I do have things I try out initially and make a bigger painting of. Yeah.
So this particular piece, I really like the quality of the imagined light, the way that the yellow sort of diffuses outwards, even on top of the background ripples. That it really this piece it really works for me. Um, I really like it, but it made me question the materials that you use. So I think this was labeled oil wax on linen or canvas?
Canvas. Yes.
But it's
Yes.
oil and then wax, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Wax in the oil, like just an additive to the oil.
Is this an encaustic then?
No, it's cold wax.
Okay.
Cold
So you just
wax.
keep it cold the entire time.
Yes, it's a cold wax medium. It just goes in the paint with the paint. Yeah.
So why do you use that?
Well, I think I don't. It helps to build up the paint surface. I think is probably the main reason to do that. And yeah, I've gotten in the habit of doing. I just think it bulks up the paint a bit on the
Okay.
surface. I'm interested in surface quality for sure. There.
So it's kind of like used like a gel medium. If it was like an acrylic, it would be doing the same sort of thing.
Yes. Yes.
You're not
Right.
using it for the wax properties then.
Right. Although sometimes it does buff nicely, and I can like that too, and that can help. Yeah.
Really interesting. Buffing. I like that. This piece, and this is the final piece I wanted to show, was quite interesting. What's the size of this piece?
I think it's
Roughly?
16 by 20 inches.
Okay, so this is much smaller then. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. It could be a little bit bigger. It could be like 24 by 20, but it's in a smaller range. Yeah.
So several of the pieces that I saw on your websites were smaller. Do you tend to work smaller or larger, or is it half and half?
I would say just both, really, both kind of intimate scale and larger and sort of moderate. So all around on scale, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I do see your smaller pieces as being a lot more intimate in the conversation that you're having with the viewer. I mean, it just means something completely different, especially when I love the details that you can get in with that scumbling that just drags that across. When you make something like this, is there a lot of reworking of the picture, or is it sort of first time's the magic time?
I think there is a bit of reworking, and on this particular one, I think it's mainly collage. Like these reds were on pieces of paper already, I believe. It's been a couple of years since I did this, maybe last year, but yeah, it doesn't come out right away. I usually have to end up working on it for a while to get what I want, really.
It's interesting that you bring up Guston, because actually the first artist, oh, I do have one more. The first artist that I was thinking of as soon as I saw your work was actually Rothko. This idea of
Yeah,
this, thinking of
yeah,
the color and the light that emits from the color and really sort of emotion play there.
yeah. I definitely appreciate Rothko. I've never felt like I've been that influenced by him, but I do appreciate him. And I guess, one reason I bring up Guston is because I was at Boston University when he was there in the 70s. And I heard him talk a lot and give critiques to students. And I'm just sort of a follower of Philip Guston. So I don't feel influenced by his paintings particularly, but his whole philosophy and his whole sort of being as an artist, that's really been a big impact on me. So I always got out of my way to see his work, and I just really appreciate him as an artist a lot.
I would completely agree with you. I have a love affair with Guston, and I don't think that your work is influenced by Rothko. It just so happens to, I think, have, I don't know, like a similar quality, like the treatment of the paint, I think, is where I saw that. So anyway, sidetrack aside, let me ask you what to start at the beginning of your artistic endeavors. So when did you start becoming an artist? When did you know that you wanted to be an artist?
Well, my mother was really influential to me, and so
Okay.
I was kind of had my hands in it all along as just drawing and sketching. But I think actually I didn't know what to do as a profession. So I think when I got to be a senior in high school, I just had to go to art school. I wanted to go to art training, and ended up getting recommendations to go to Boston University for this traditional program they had. So that was sort of big decision to just go ahead and give everything you got to this thing. And I've been sort of on this trajectory all the time for like 40 years or so.
So when you started, were you classically trained? Like,
yeah, I would say so. Yeah, a lot of drawing.
you have those tools in your tool chest.
Yes.
but you wanted to seek other paths. How long after schooling did you find your footing?
Oh, well, I guess really for about 10 years after school, I did paintings based on representation, looking at things. And I had shows in some really good galleries, and even in the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, a couple of shows there. And I was just progressing, and being a professional artist was my goal, and I was doing that. However, for a long time I've been really I really like to see abstract paintings, and that was what sort of fed my soul. But I was in this other, I had this recognition as this other thing, but finally the tension got so bad, I just had to jump over and ended up actually after a trip to Japan, going to a Zen gardens in Kyoto and coming back and having a dream of a painting. And I thought I'd just do it for myself, actually, but I end up, that's been my, I realized you just got to be focused on that. So that's what I've been doing. That's been 30 years, probably 25 years or so.
So let me ask this question. I'm kind of going out of order here, but I'd be curious to know about your the progression of your works. So oftentimes artists, as they change over the years, sometimes it's a slow slide, but then sometimes there's artists where there's clear breaks. So would I be guessing right that there's more of a break in what you're?
I would say there had to be a change in procedure, what to do. It had to be either you're going to look at something and do that, or you're going to do this other thing instead of take this big risk and jump on this other boat. But at the end of my like the last show, I had a representational work, a number of landscape paintings, and a friend told me, you're like an abstract artist who goes outside. It's like I wanted to be abstract, but I was outside looking at something and I'm trying to get this color and this scene, but it still became more and more just linear and abstract, and it wasn't really being forced, just evolving.
You sound like a Bay Area figurative artist. They have that sort of, like Diebenkorn is, was an abstract artist trapped in a realist.
Yeah.
So let's talk about now. I'm curious about your current process. Do you, for your creative process, so say you're going to make a new work, I want to know about your ideas. Do your ideas for the image come first, or are you the kind of artist where the picture more evolves from the materials that you're working with?
Yeah, it definitely evolves, and I think it depends. It doesn't like right now I have an idea for a painting, and I'm going to probably do a small painting to try it out first.
Right. Okay.
Because I think it looks great on a big scale, but I'm going to try it out. So I have ideas, and I have things I see in nature that trigger those ideas sometimes, but there's really a lot of changing going on when you get your feet wet. When you go into the water, you decide whether you're going to swim here or swim there, kind of thing.
I have a friend of mine who's an artist, and he says he always has these dreams about pictures, but every time he tries to paint it, it never comes out like the dream, kind of a thing.
Oh, gosh.
I think that happens. I get so sidetracked from the materials and so excited about a certain shape or a certain color that it sort of takes me on its own sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think you might have something similar to that.
I think so.
So when you're going to make something, you just talked about the idea that you make a small paint. Do you keep a sketchbook? Do you make sketches?
Sometimes I do, just to get an idea and not forget about it later on, just to make a note of it, really. But I don't sketch from life, or I don't go outside sketching like that. I just have my little notations sometimes with what color to use, or what this form should be, or what might happen. Yeah.
I had an artist in my studio the other day, and we talked about the same issue, and he was an abstract artist too, but he surprised me by saying, yes, I keep a sketchbook, but his sketches are about color. So there's no forms, and it was just fascinating to see his sketchbooks, just thinking about, orange and green, just
yeah. Sometimes the color can trigger you, I think.
Kind of wild to see that. Yeah. Have you ever had an exhibit where it's work that's really in progress work, or the small sketches work, or anything like that? Have you ever shown the process in your exhibits?
I don't think
very few artists do. I'd be surprised.
Yeah. Usually I have to feel like it's pretty complete, and that's
Okay.
not on the way to something else, it's there. Yeah.
So speaking of completion, do you ever find yourself where you're making a picture and uh, after a week or after a year, you realize the picture's not working? Do you rework your pictures? Do you ever discard your pictures?
Yeah. I do rework. I mean, if I have ideas so I can make it better, I do go ahead and do that, especially if it's not working or I don't feel that good about it. I go ahead and do some more. And occasionally I've just torn a painting apart and use it for something else. Like you can make collages out of something that's been destroyed, and that's worked
Right.
out much better. I feel better about that. But yeah.
So do you have a destroy pile? I guess that's my real question.
Yeah, well, it's not that frequent, really. Not really, but I have destroyed some paintings, but not
Okay,
not
good.
habitually or anything. Yeah.
I asked that question, but I think it's really for me because it just makes me feel better. Like, okay, I'm not the only one. I feel okay about this.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so one of the questions that I was dying to ask you about, it's a real simple question. Let's talk about color. I would love for you to tell me what you think about color.
Yeah, wow. Well,
It's a big question, I know. So
yeah,
you just
it
take a little chunks of it.
definitely is a big question. I mean, I really like Albers and his pronouncements on color and what he's done, and that whole idea that you only see color in relationship to other colors. You don't see it purely on its own. And part of that comes from I was taught a color and design class at UVA a long time ago, and I learned a lot about color from that book, from that course, and studying Albers and another colorist. I think is it Johann Itten, I think.
I don't know.
But I think color is really important for the quality of light. That the color basically is light. And I really like the idea of complementary colors and those mixtures you can get with that. So I don't really use black. But I do use black and silver, but I don't use black that much as a color. I think it was black and silver or monochrome. I mean, but
Are you using color at all in terms of emotion or manipulation of the viewer, or is the color way more focused about the perceived generation of light for you?
yeah, I think the latter really. I think of it as, yeah. I don't think of it so much. I don't know why, but as so much emotional, but more color itself kind of thing. I don't know.
Because I find most people, they immediately equate color with emotion. I mean, that's just the
Yeah,
general audiences.
yeah.
Have you ever worked with light?
I have thought about it a lot, and I've really appreciated Dan Flavin and his work. Especially out there at Shenandoah Foundation in Texas, out there, and I really have thought about it, and I thought I should have done something, and I haven't done anything really about it yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I think it would be really fascinating to see what you would come up with. I interviewed another artist, Lynn Godley, and what she does, she makes paintings, but then she also projects light onto the paintings, and it's fat because she's working with light, and it was fascinating to see what she was able to come up with.
Yeah.
I would love to see what your structures would look like and what those kind of things would look like. I'm also kind of curious because I see your pictures a lot to do with layers of pigments, layers of light, really, which is actually for me a very printmaking way of thinking. And I was wondering, have you ever done any sort of printmaking in your work?
Not really. I had it in school a little bit printmaking, but I've done just a minor bit directly after that, but not really. I would say not really.
I would love to see prints of yours, especially with etchings. I think that you can get some of those qualities.
Really?
That the one that you had with the yellow with the brown around it. I first thought it was a print when I saw it like immediately. So it just had sort of those qualities. But
Yeah.
again, it's not actually in front of me. I would love to be in front of me.
No, thanks.
So when you're making your work, one of the things I'm curious about is, as you're in the moment of creation, do you ever think about the audiences that are seeing this work, or is the work more for you?
Yeah, I think it's for me, really. I think it's for me, but I feel like I've strayed off a little bit sometimes, thinking of someone else or what someone else would like or what could be. But I think that's not a good path to be on. I think it's
No, I'm not talking about kowtowing to other people's likes. I'm more about thinking like the story that you're giving within your images. Are you trying to tell
Mhm.
that story to the audience, or are you just telling it to yourself?
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you can answer that.
Yeah, well,
That was kind of a weird question.
yeah, I think it's important to keep, it's important to have an audience, I think, and be out there. And I've sort of been quiet for during this pandemic period as far as being out and exhibiting. And I think I'm getting ready for a show, so I'm going to be exposed. I'm going to be really out there, and I feel that's important to do. But it is an exposure,
Is this the first exhibit since the pandemic for you?
for a solo show. It is for a solo show. Yeah.
Pandemic do to you?
What? I'm sorry.
What did the pandemic
Oh,
do to your work? Anything, or it kind
yeah.
of
I,
you just plowed through?
I think sort of plowed through. Really, I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't really be sure. Yeah.
You never know. Sometimes it takes like a decade when you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, look what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious about other artists. So we did mention a bunch of other artists that we talked about either having an interest in or an influence by. Do you always look at new artists, or do you have favorites that you always kind of go back to? Are there other artists that you can't get enough of?
Oh gosh, man, I like to look at contemporary work. I like to think that I can, just what's going on today, and I definitely interested in that. But I do have some big stars in my drama, my program. Yeah.
Are they any that we haven't mentioned already?
Well, one big one is Agnes Martin.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
that's been a tremendous, and her work and her writings and her life, the whole picture of her, and
That's
uh,
right. I did read on your site about your first exposure to her and how it sort of threw
yeah,
a little bit of a
yeah,
loop there. Yeah,
yeah,
I could definitely see that.
yeah.
Any
Um,
any any artists that aren't painters? Any photographers or sculptors or anything like that?
well, I don't know. Donald Judd is. I don't know if you call him. What do you call him? A Don, or Dan Flavin
Dan
too.
Fla wow, sculptors maybe,
Yeah. I mean,
or
I like to look at
installation.
sculpture and installations. So,
Yeah.
certain ones I respond to a lot. So,
Well, I saw in your works, speaking of the work itself, you do have works that almost seem to be in series. That was kind of like labeled that way on your website. Do you consider your works in series, or was that just coincidence in terms of the way I was looking at it?
yeah, I don't really think of it as a series, but I think it's definitely me, and maybe it's too much of me in one thing. I mean, I should be a little further out. Maybe it's a little too much of locked in, but that's the way it is.
Well, we talked earlier about you had a break when you went from sort of realism to abstraction. Was it just one break, or have there been other breaks, or are you anticipating another break?
Yeah. I know I might need another break, but I don't know if I'm getting it or not. Yeah,
The pandemic. That's why I asked that question, because that made a break for a lot of artists. So I was just
I
curious. It's
know.
it's
Yeah,
really it's very interesting for me to hear that you just the work that you did before pandemic and after, you just plowed on through. So
yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
that based on did you have very rigorous studio practices, or?
Yeah, I guess I'm pretty regular on that. Yeah, I keep pretty regular hours. But I do admire Guston for his really big sort of three big changes. Really, I think that's astounding. That these three
Yeah,
stylistic groups of work are just
yeah.
amazing. And
Well,
to do it
you
later.
had one. You only need two more. So
He did it
you had fun.
later in life too.
Yeah,
So.
right. Oh, that's funny you mentioned. I was just saying to a friend of mine the other day, something I always repeat about. It was a de Kooning quote, and de Kooning said, artists are lucky if they have like maybe three good ideas in their entire life. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of true.
Yeah, yeah,
Kind of like that.
I can
Um,
understand it. Yeah.
so I've got time for just one more question. It's a question I ask all the artists. Very simple. Um, what does making art do for you?
What does it do for me? Yeah. Mm. Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, it's sort of my life, my entire life, just about. But I'm trying to have some hobbies or anything else too. But I mean, I guess looking at art is not quite the same thing as making it. But looking at it is definitely enriching, and making it. I don't know. I just hope it's a gift to people, that I can give something that people can really appreciate. That's what I hope for. And I don't know what else I could do besides that, really. So it's hoping for one.
A lot of the artists I talk to, they talk about the fact that it keeps them sane. That without they can't imagine life without it.
Yeah, it's definitely my being, really, my work, and what I've been wanting to do. So I'm doing it. So I'm thankful for that. So yeah, I just hope it's a gift to people too. So.
Oh, it is. It really is. It is to me. So I can vouch for that. So
thank you.
I really like the work very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've run out of time, but I really want to thank you very much for coming and talking to me today. I really appreciate it. I love the insights in the work, especially when it sort of changes the idea of my understanding of the work. So again, thank you very much for coming by. And I also want to thank everybody else who tuned in to watch ArtShow today, to watch Robert and I have a conversation. As always, we love it when you like, share, and subscribe. That really helps push ArtShow forward and allows other people to see it. So anything that you can do in that regard, we'd love it. If you have any questions for Robert, you can always put them in the comments section. I can always pass them on if I can't answer them myself. So again, Robert, thank you very much for today. I really appreciate it. It's a wonderful time talking to you today.
Thanks a lot, Craig. It's been helpful for me too. It's been good. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. You too.